Hello guys and welcome to my long awaited Zulrah guide. So it's taken me a while to put this video together, but I did want to make sure it was absolutely perfect and I was happy with it before I released it to you. I know there are a lot of good Zulrah guides out there and I should bloody hope so, because the boss has been out for 3.5 years. Came out on the 8th of January 2015. However, people want to see how I do Zulrah and they want to see a guide from myself, and I completely understand that. So here we are giving you a guide. I hope you guys do appreciate it, and please don't forget to hit that like button if you do enjoy it. Alright, so let's get into the basics of this. Zulrah is a giant snake, also known as the Prophet Snake. Now the reason it's known as the Prophet Snake is, as I mentioned before, it's been out for about 3.5 years now, and it has been consistently one of the best, if not the best, money-making money-making method since day of release, earning anywhere from 2.5 to 3 mil per hour. At the moment, I believe it is slightly better than Volcap, but only very slightly. It is fluctuating depending on prices. So yeah, like I said, you want to learn how to do Zulrah. Don't worry, Zulrah took me a very long time to learn. I'm not proud of it, but it took me around about 50 kills, but I've mastered it now. I can get around about 4 or 5 kills per trip. Usually I come back with a full inventory of loot, and sometimes I don't even use any food, which is obviously amazing. So Zulrah is a boss which has 4 different rotations, but as soon as you know all 4 rotations, or if you can follow a diagram, which I'll show you on screen right now, these are 2 diagrams that I have created myself. Now, I haven't come up with the ideas myself. I've just looked around at every other rotation or map that I could find on the web, and combined them all together pretty much to make one that I find easiest to read. Like I said, if you're new to Zulrah, this is going to look very daunting, but don't worry, I'll go through everything and explain it all to you in a second. So let's get back onto Zulrah. What are the requirements and what I would recommend really for you doing Zulrah? So an absolute must is you must have started the Regicide quest. If you haven't started the Regicide quest, you cannot get to the Zulrah area, which is in the Poison Waste. However, I would just recommend completing Regicide because it will make it a lot easier. As well, there is an agility shortcut you can use to make this 10 times better for you. You'll save a lot of money, and that of course needs 76 agility as well. So if you don't have 76, I'd recommend getting it. It's not going to take that long to get, and it's definitely worth it. Or at least get 71 and use the Summer Pie boost. But yeah, like I said, you're earning about 2.5 mil per hour, and you don't want to be spending the majority of that on Zulrah teleports to get basically, what, a 10-second run closer. I don't know, I'll show you in a second how we get here. So the skilling requirements, I should say the combat requirements for doing Zulrah, I'm not going to do a recommended actually, just because I think what I say now are quite low anyway. So if you do have these, you're going to struggle if you're learning. I would say higher defense is definitely going to help you out. Like I said, if you're learning, that's fine. Obviously, the more defense you have, the better armor you can wear, the better it's going to be. However, you don't have to have best in slot armor. You can do this in Void. That's how I learned how to do it, and that's how I got my first couple of kills, was doing it in Void. You're going to need at least like 70, 80 range. I'd recommend 80 plus. 80 plus magic, 80 plus hit points, and the minimum requirement is 45 prayer, but I would recommend having augury and rigor unlocked, so you need at least 77 for those, and obviously a bit of money in the bank to buy the prayer scrolls. I believe they're still quite pricey in the Grand Exchange, but yeah, I mean the requirements aren't too bad. You don't have to have all that, of course. As long as you have the protection prayers, you are fine. 45 I would say is literally just so you can use the Eagle Eye prayer and the Mystic Might. So I would say 45 is the bare minimum that I would recommend coming to try and do Zulrah with. Also, if you are a hardcore Iron Man, do not come here and expect to have a safe death. If you die here, it is an unsafe death, so you will lose your hardcore Iron Man status. But if you do die whilst you're doing Zulrah, if you run over to the dock over here, there is a lady who you can collect your things off. Just a quick note on that as well. If you do die at Zulrah and do not collect all of your items, if you then have another unsafe death away from Zulrah or at Zulrah, you will lose the items that you first lost at Zulrah. So please make sure after the kill, you make sure you come back here and you reclaim your items, just like this person's going to do Thank you very much for that. Now, the reason I was stood over here to start off with is before you start killing Zulrah, you need to talk to this lady here, the High Priestess. I believe the story behind it is the gnome child has to sacrifice himself, and you volunteer to be sacrificed instead. Very honourable of you, so well done for doing that to start off with. But apart from that, it's pretty simple. Like, Zulrah is over here, like I mentioned before, in the Poison Wasteland. So the port Tyrus is there in the Tyrus camp. If you do the Regicide quest, you'll know all about this. So if you're coming off the port, obviously you can use a normal charter ship to get here. Anywhere Camelot is probably the best one to use, I would say. Bank at Camelot, run down to the charter ship, get the charter ship to here, and then run down to this location. However, I have a fairy ring in my house, and like I mentioned before, there is a better way to get here, which is just use BJS. Obviously, if you need to use a Draven staff, make sure you have one in your inventory. And then there is an agility shortcut here, which requires 76 agility. Again, you can boost with a summer pie from 71. And then you just run down here. And then third of all, finally, last way to get here is to use I think it's a Zoolander teleport, I believe it is. But basically, it's a Zulrah teleport scroll. But each one of those is 20k a pop. But please be aware of that when you are factoring in how to get here and stuff. Just note that they are quite expensive to get the teleports each time, especially if you're going to be coming here, probably getting 1 kill a trip when you first start off. That can really eat into your profits. I am quickly going to go over the rotational map just for anyone who hasn't seen it before, or for people that aren't very familiar with it. Like I said, the links to these maps will both be down below in the description, so make sure you download them. I'll go on the Gaiazo link if you aren't sure yourself. So the reason I've made these maps, like I mentioned before, is because I find these easier to read. Personally, I use a dark one. I find that a lot better, but if you don't like that one and you prefer a light one, feel free to download that one as well. I understand that these maps can look very daunting at first, but don't worry, they are very simple once you understand the basic mechanics. So, Zulrah will always spawn in the middle, so you don't have to worry about that. As soon as you run in, you can always run to the bottom part of that horseshoe, and then you want to stand in that location and use protection from range. Even though Zulrah doesn't hit you on the first phase, and there's some other phases as well where you'll start to understand that you don't have to have your protection prayers on all the time, but whilst you're learning, just have your protection prayers up and get into the routine and the habit of when Zulrah is green, for example, make sure you have protection from missiles on and augury up. And of course, when Zulrah is blue, make sure you have protection from magic and rigor up. And then when Zulrah is red, now Zulrah, when it's red, is in its melee phase. Zulrah's melee attacks cannot be protected against, and you will always get knocked back and stunned. However, there are safe spot locations you can stand in, and if you're not, you basically have to move like 2 or 3 squares in order to actually avoid the attack. But if you want to know more and see how I do that, please stay tuned towards the end of the video, and you can watch each rotation and then obviously look at where I stand and how I move. So that's basically the colored dots sorted out. You'll notice how there is a black dot as well on the screen for each sort of rotational step. So what you need to do with there is that black dot is where you should be standing each time you're doing that phase, or towards the end of the phase. Now, I say towards the end of the phase because if you look at phase number 4, or rotation number 4, about halfway down there is a red dot, maybe not even halfway, just below halfway. You'll notice that I'm stood on the left hand side, or that black dot is on the left hand side. However, I personally stand on the right hand side, same sort of area but on the right hand side. But the reason I have it on the left hand side is because you're technically supposed to run over to that left side as soon as Zulrah starts to despawn, because when the next green phase spawns, you need to be on that left hand side, otherwise you're going to be getting venomed. That's quite complicated to understand if you don't know what Zulrah is. The only other thing I need to go over is you'll notice how I have some of the steps closer to the bottom have either a protection from range or a protection from mage symbol on them, as well as a Zulrah symbol and where you should be standing. Now don't worry, these are known as Jad phases. I don't know why they're known as Jad phases, to be fair. All they do is they rotate between 2 different attack styles. So even though Zulrah is on 1 and 2 showing as green, the green dot is where Zulrah will spawn. However, after the first attack being range, Zulrah will then change to a magic attack and then a range attack and so on and so forth. So make sure you are switching your prayers after Zulrah does each attack. And then the same goes for 3 and 4 with the magic wands. On phase 3, she spawns to the left hand side, and on phase 4 spawns in the middle. Make sure you protect from magic on the first attack and then switch to range on the second attack, following a third attack with magic again, and so on and so forth. Hopefully I've explained that well, and it's not too confusing. Like I said, if you do want to have a rotational map up when you're watching watching me do the rotations, I will go through each and every rotation at the end with a run that I have done personally. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Now for the fun part. So I'm going to be going through the gear setup that I use and what I would recommend you doing for when you first start off. So the gear setup that I'm using right now, like I said, I didn't start off doing this. It's just this is quicker kills per hour for me, and it's not even the best in slot. As you can see, I could clearly upgrade my gear here. So the best in slot for me would be to get an arcane and to use an ancestral hat. Now the reason I don't use an ancestral hat is when you're killing Zulrah has a chance to apply a venom effect to you, which is very similar to poison. However, it does the complete opposite. Oh, it doesn't do the complete opposite. I'll explain it now to you. So poison basically hits you for a number of damage for a number of ticks and then decreases slightly. The way venom works is it will hit you lower first, and then it's roughly the same amount of time that a poison would tick. The venom will increase in damage, so it's just going to get worse and worse the longer you are venomed for. So there are 2 ways to counteract this. There's to use an anti-venom or an anti-poison or an antidote, something like that, or to use the serpentine helmet. Now I use the serpentine helmet just because it's a lot easier and I don't have to worry about it. Plus the charges that it takes up is very, very minimal at Zulrah. It does, however, affect both your range and your magic attack. Not by much, but it does affect them nevertheless. So if you are looking at doing obviously the best kills per hour, you don't want to be wearing a serpentine helmet. You will, however, need to take a anti-venom plus. Now if you don't have these, it's not a problem, and if you're an Iron Man, you can't buy them. You can just take normal anti-poisons. However, you will be unaffected. Sorry, you will still be affected by venom. It means you can be re-venomed multiple times throughout the kill. So that is a bit of a shame. But what it also means is you have to drink 2 doses of it in order to cure it, rather than just a single dose of an anti-venom plus. I believe an anti-venom plus lasts around about 2 minutes as well, which is roughly the average kill time for a new player killing Zulrah. So the gear setup that I have here is, of course, I have the imbued Saradomin cape, which is the Mage Arena 2 cloak. I have the occult necklace, any blessing just to give me that prayer bonus. I have a Mage's Book, Arim's top and bottom. I have a Trident of the Swamp. I have a Tormented Bracelet, Eternal Boots, and a Ring of Suffering. Now, a Ring of Suffering or Rings of Recoil are going to come in incredibly handy, and I will tell you why later when we go over the mechanics. You will even need Ring of Suffering, which can hold multiple recoil charges. So if we check on mine, I've still got 3,677. And you obviously want to make sure the recoil effect is turned on. That's to deal with the snakelings, which again we'll go over in a moment. And then in my inventory, I just have a 5-way range switch, which again isn't best in slot. It could definitely get a lot better than this. However, I'm just comfortable switching 5-6 ways. That's just what I'm comfortable with. If you can switch better, and obviously you are a pro at switching or whatever, and if you don't have a blowpipe, you can probably switch out like an armadillo crossbow there with a twisted buckler or something like that. However, I'll be using a blowpipe for this. And then I also have the imbued heart. Now, if you don't have an imbued heart, I wouldn't really say it's worth taking magic pots on the long run. But if you are learning, I would take them. It only increases your magic by like 3 levels, I think, which isn't a lot, but it is obviously when you're learning, every little helps. Also, if you are learning out, you want to bring either a battle range potion or make sure you bring a super defense as well, as that's really going to help you out when you're getting hit by Zulrah and the snakelings, because you can't protect from everything at once. So if not, just a ranging potion like I bring, and then 2 either super restores or prayer potions. It doesn't matter, I just have more super restores in my bank. Now if you're first starting off at Zulrah, you're going to want a lot better food than what I've got. So either anglerfish, either anglerfish, manta rays, or sharks. Personally, I would say sharks, and you're probably going to need a little bit more combo food. So when you're first starting out, I would say have your inventory something looking like this. Now, if you are doing a switch to a blowpipe, if you need to switch between range at the start of the kill, you are going to have to drop a food but that doesn't matter because it stays on the floor for the majority of the kill anyway. I think it stays on the floor for the entire kill, to be fair, because it is an instanced area. However, I just don't normally take it. So that's what your inventory wants to look like. Now, I'm going to set it up with, obviously as well, of course, if you can't afford anything like this, make sure you get yourself some Mystic or something, just the best stuff that you can possibly wear. Ivan's Staff, Ivan's Blast isn't too bad at Zulrah if you can't afford a Trident of the Seas. You don't have to use a Trident of the Swamp. Trident of the Seas is perfectly fine. For gloves, if you don't have a Tormented Bracelet, you want to use something like Barrow's Gloves are the next best in slot for you. Eternal Boots, you can always use something like Infinity Boots or even Mystic Boots, to be fair. Like I said, if you can't afford a Ring of Suffering, Ring of Recoil, that would be perfect. If you don't have a amulet, an occult amulet, which is fairly cheap these days, I think about 300k or something. Obviously, if you don't have one of these, I'd say a Glory. The cape, preferably you want something that gives you magic attack bonus. If you can't get that, use something like a fire cape or something. I don't know, any cape that you really do have. And of course, if you don't have the Serpentine helmet, make sure you get something, your best in slot, which is probably, if you're wearing Mystic, it's probably going to be a Mystic hat, isn't it? Let's face it. And then of course the Mage's Book can be up or downgraded. You can use a Damage Book. There's one for specifically for magic, isn't it? But I think it's the Ancient Book, maybe. Of course, that isn't very expensive, and if you have it already, it's completely free to reclaim. So yeah, not a problem. That's pretty much the gear you're going to be using. Obviously, with a range setup, it works out exactly the same. If you can't afford Armadillo, switch it down to, of course, D'hide. Ava's Assembler to Ava's Attractor or Accumulator. The Amulet of Anguish down to a Fury or a Glory, and then of course the Blowpipe down to anywhere down to a Rune Crossbow would be perfectly fine. Obviously, if you are using a crossbow, make sure you use some bolts. I'd say diamond bolts are probably the best if you're going to be using a crossbow. So let's move on to the Void setup. So here we have the Void setup, which is a very, very similar setup in fairness to the other one. But of course, this time we're not using the Serpentine helmet, so we do have the Anti-Venom Plus. Apart from that, it's just full Void range. Mage as well as full Void range. And the only difference here is I have the Pegasians, because we do have that extra switch available to us, because of course we're not using Tormented Bracelet for the glove slot. So, obviously as well, and the body slot and the leg slots. So this is pretty much the gear setups I'd recommend. You can substitute anything for anything, but Void is probably one of the best ones to use if you're starting out, because it's so cheap. It's basically free. It isn't really that hard to obtain. It just takes a couple of hours. Also, with Void, you can use the normal Void. However, I do have Elite Void shown in this video. It won't make a difference. Don't worry about it. The only bonus you get from Elite Void is a tiny bit more damage bonus, and you also get a slight prayer bonus over normal Void. But if you don't have the Elite Void, don't worry, you can just use normal Void. Anyway, I've been chatting for such a long time now about the gear setups and stuff. I'm probably boring you. So let's jump into a few kills and a few rotations. Alright, so I'm going to start off with this first kill where I'm going to be in my house. I go to BJS, as I mentioned. This is the way I get to Zulrah, and I jump over this little stone here, and then just follow the path down to the south. So what I'm quickly going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of commentary over this and just explain to you what is going on. Obviously, I'm not going to be completely in sync with it, just because there's way too much to talk about. However, I'm going to go over the basic kills and stuff, and the basic things you need to watch out for. So, as I said, when you first go into the Zulrah lair, just want to make sure that you have Augury. Make sure you protect some range if you're first learning this. Like I said, Zulrah is currently green at the moment, so make sure you get into that habit of always having protection from range up, even though I don't have it on in the video. So as you can see at the moment, Zulrah is spitting out these like green blobs. They are the venom clouds that I mentioned before. Now these will hit you consistently whilst you're standing in them, even if you're wearing a Serpentine helmet and even if you have protection from venom. So as you can see there with the melee hits, like I said, you have to move like 2 or 3 tiles out of the way. Whenever the melee is there, you want to make sure that you move into that location exactly where I moved, and then back again into the original location. Also, with the mage phase that you've just seen, the problem with the mage phase is Zulrah doesn't always attack with magic. Sometimes she'll throw out a range attack amongst that, which is a pain in the backside. Unfortunately, that cannot be helped. When Zulrah is attacking with range, it will never use any other attack styles. So it will only ever use the range attack style, and the same with melee. Once you're attacking with melee, it will only ever use the melee attack style. So as you can see here with the the red phase, which is the melee phase. This pillar that I'm standing on is the safe spot. And the only other attack you really have to watch out for is the snakelings. So Zulrah will always throw out these snakelings. It can be quite annoying, to be fair, but it's just one of those things that happens. However, they only have 1 HP, so this is why you need the Ring of Suffering, or of course those recoils. So if you are using Rings of Recoil, make sure that you always have one on. That way you won't be taking too much damage from the snakelings. And of course, once they hit you, they only have 1 HP, so that recoil effect will take charge and kill them instantaneously. And that's pretty much it, guys. So I'm going to leave the rest of the rotations rolling on screen right now for you. So if you do want to watch the rotations live whilst you're looking at the maps that I provided, then please do feel free to do that. Sometimes I find it easier to do that. Honestly, if I had something like this to help me learn, I'd have found it so much easier, like knowing where to stand and stuff, and actually having a map that I could like look at and stuff. That would have been fantastic. So I hope you guys did enjoy this. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here so you don't miss out on any of my future content. Have a nice day, and I'll see you in a couple of days with my new account from scratch. Take care.
Yeah.